Thank you so much for tuning in to Circling Dialogos. If you are inspired by what we talk about on this channel and want to dive deeper and in fellowship with others, there's a number of ways you can do that. One is to become my client and work one-on-one with me. We also have circling events every week open to the public. We also do weekend intensives for circling every 4 to 6 weeks or so. And we have a year-long Art of Circling practitioner training program. We also have self-study programs that you can do at your own pace. All the relevant links, including my email, is below in the show notes. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Stone-faced.
You were saying, Jordan.
Sorry, what?
You something about the through line in the eternal, something or other.
The through line was everybody's actually really here. Like we're embedded in a real stream. Now, for the most part, of course, things that are categorized as current events are not actually relevant to our real lives, but sometimes they are. And of course, usually they are tied to things that are happening at a larger scale that then show up in our lives in particular ways. It could be anything. The rent is too high in my town for young people to be able to live here. Okay, well, that's a thing that shows up lots of different ways in lots of different places, and it shows up in my place. It's relevant. And you can kind of keep going up the scale. So you can look at, is there a way to participate in something where you can ground yourself in the eternal and give yourself a strong way of being in response to whatever life happens to throw at you. And then also how the eternal condescends into the moment in the particular fashion. So you can, in an orderly way, just kind of check off the boxes, if that makes any sense. I'll give you an example. At this conference that John and I were at recently, I was talking with Annie Crawford about multi-generational thinking. It's one thing to take a look at a particular set of affairs and a particular set of choices from the point of view of, say, your life. But if you really could actually say, what about for my grandkids or my great-grandkids? I don't know if Westerners can really do the sixth generation thing. Like, it's neat to pretend, but many of us can still care about our grandkids. And so that's a principle. Like, that's a very nice, high-quality principle, and it changes the texture of a very large number of things, particularly because it produces things like uncertainty. Well, what's the consequence of this for my grandkids? Actually, I don't have any idea. Maybe that fact should be quite relevant to what you're thinking about right now. So that could be a thing. That kind of an approach could be meaningful.
I like that, actually. I mean, I'm going to be meeting with Mark Vernon to talk to him about his commentary on Dante's comedy. And that's the thing that, because he goes through each canto and he gives sort of a take on it. Quite good, by the way, quite good. I recommend it. But one of the things that was really interesting was I noted it's hard to say what tense Dante's comedy is in. Like, is it in the present tense? Is it in the eternal tense? Because they're woven together in like this, like, because he'll get really pissed at people that have like messed around with him in his life. But and then the next moment he's talking to Jason from Jason and it feels simultaneously strange and like a great work of art at the same time. And that's what came to my mind when it wasn't so much the supposed, I don't think this is Platonic, but the supposed Platonic contrast between eternity and time, but the way that Dante has them this is exactly the wrong word, but co-present in a way that is really intriguing to me. And that sensibility, I think, it might actually also be relevant to that intergenerational, because it's both in the moment and yet it's also extends to people who are not present and maybe in the deep past or the deep future. And it seems so natural to him too, and it seems so foreign to me when I'm reading it. And it's only because of, some familiarity with, Platonic thought, Neoplatonic thought, and also some Eastern Asiatic philosophy, that I can even track what he's doing. Uh, anyways, I'll stop. But it struck me that there's some deep connection between his relationship to temporized eternity or eternal temporality, I don't know what to call it, and the cultivation of wisdom. They seem to be bound up together because there's something about sin that is both in the moment and eternal that he's trying to get his finger on in a really, really powerful way. At least to my mind. I hope that the Dante scholars aren't like screaming at me right now, but that's impressed itself on me, and I've been reflecting on it. And I don't know if that rings a little bit with what you were talking about, Jordan, but that's what's coming to mind for me.
Janet, I just have one question. You talked about it being strange, I think 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
Is that strangeness seems, is there something about that it's strange? Is that part of the thing that you're talking about?
Because, and this is Han, and Chris and I have read Han together, the Scent of Time, right? And
Great book.
We've lost the verticality, and we're completely caught up in the horizontality of time, and then we've atomized it. It's just buzzing. It just buzzes, and there's no sense of what he calls of the ability to linger. That's the verb he uses. We can't linger. And then the point he's making, and maybe that's a bit of the connection I'm looking for. The inability to linger is something detrimental to our attempts to cultivate wisdom when we can't linger in some powerful way. So we have what Rosa calls frenetic stability. We have to speed up more and more just so that we don't fall behind, which is the exact opposite of what you get. This, like, Jason's reading the comedy with me, and he goes like, it's kind of slow, and I was like, that's the point. Or he was reading Moby Dick, and he says, there's these long passages that are really slow, and I went, yeah. And what happens in those for you? And he goes, like, it's really like, and I said, yes. And that's what's happening to Ishmael. Like, and Melville's trying to get you into this interpenetration of eternity and time. That famous scene where he's in the crow's nest, and eternity and time are sort of sloshing into each other like the waves. Yeah. And all of that, I feel, is not pronounced in my sort of day-to-day life, but maybe it should be more. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing it open. I'm just literally saying what came to mind when Jordan did his thing.
I have a weird question for all of you guys. You guys are all dads.
Are you going to introduce more strangeness?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. Do you think that kids, have a better intuitive sense of the eternal than fully grown adult human beings do?
All non-saints, I assume.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Non-saints.
Yes.
I think they enter in the flow state more readily than we do, but I think they are also equivalently beset by impulsivity much more. I think they are more prone to being wanton than we are. They can enter flow states more readily than we are, and they can enter into profound obsessions in a way that we find quite telling. And I don't know, do those give you a window on eternity? That's an interesting question. They're certainly not the normal way adults are living out the Protestant progressive unfolding of time.
No, I guess I'm not sure I mean any of that. I think what I mean is I'm speaking from just from some vague memory of being a child and also interacting with children. And I have the sense that when the word forever, being dead forever, sleeping forever, being around forever or not, I have this weird sense that forever, whatever we mean when we use that word, means something different to a child than it does to an adult. And there is a difference of the phenomenology of the pre-sentiment of that word, kids and for adults.
So this is we have to sort of do a couple of loops to get to the heart of the question, because, as you say, we, being adults, are going to have to separate ourselves from the image of eternity as something that happens on a number line with arrows pointing in both directions. Right, because that's what happens as you become an adult, at least in our version of the world. And of course, that has nothing to do with eternity. And so we get confused because we think we've actually got a pretty good handle on eternity by creating a map that indicates eternity in pure abstraction. Whereas a child who has not yet gotten there, when looking at a flower with full attention, is closer to the reality of eternity than that image of the number line will ever be. Because of course, eternity is much, much closer to the notion of moment, or is much, much closer to the notion of present than it has anything to do with time.
So yesterday, actually, pretty much every day of the whole summer, my now 4-year-old son, has insisted on learning how to swim his own way. Like he's insisted on everything, doing it his own way. And he goes out in the pool, right? And he's developed this really interesting way of swimming where he kind of just keeps his head above water and just finds a way just to keep, like, and here's the thing, is he's like literally laughing, like giggling and laughing the whole time. So it's like you could just imagine like Brienne and I out there watching him, just watching this little kid giggle, like at some level. And there's a feeling, I don't know if this actually answers your question, but you know, there's a specific experience of beholding him, right? That I get this sense that he may not have a reflective sense of, but he is, at least in those moments. And what it communicates to me and Brienne, I would say is a kind of eternality, right? There's something about the fact, like kind of the fact that he exists. Like I told my wife the other day, I was like, it's almost impossible to be an atheist and look at my son. Right? Like there's something.
How are you? Yeah, but how are you distinguishing between your reflection on the child and what the child is undergoing?
Yeah.
Because I'm worried we're sliding from the first into the second. I think we look at them and say, "Oh, I was there. I'd be experiencing the world in a grain of sand." And I don't think kids experience the world that way. I think because the fact, for example, when they become aware of death, it is shocking to them. There is no sense of their mortality to them. And I wonder about believing that somebody is realizing eternity without any sense of mortality.
I have no disagreement with any of that stuff. And then there's the kind of the pre-rational fallacy, like all that kind of stuff. I'm totally in agreement with that. I think what I'm saying is that there's something that's communicated, right, in him, right, with us when we get present that communicates something more than there's a moreness that's communicated, right? And I don't know if that moreness, maybe that moreness, like we can argue about whether or not that moreness has an eternal dimension to it. But it's something, right? That I don't think he's aware of. I don't think he's got any sense of himself of, right? Like I have no idea actually what his phenomenological experience is. I doubt it's reflective, right? But there's something about, if we say there's something transjective, right, happening in that relationship, there's a moreness there.
I guess so. I guess my thing is I'm a little bit. I guess where I'm resisting is, and this is what I want to be with the awareness of mortality, is, for me, eternity doesn't just carry the sense of timelessness, it carries a sense of realness to it. And that's a pretty standard theme. And I don't know if children have any good discernment about, I mean, that's kind of the defining feature of childhood and immaturity. No clear sense of realness. And that's why they do what looks to us as often very insane things, because they don't properly proportion their attention to the reality of what they're doing. Um, um, so yeah, I think for me, children get into the flow state more readily than we do. I think that's our best analog of what they're doing. But I think they are getting into the flow state in a way in which the video gamer is getting into a flow state. It's a very local locked flow state, which is not the same thing, um, I would argue, as eternity. Eternity should be like it shouldn't be locked to a particular situation in terms of where you're flowing. So I mean, this was the great discovery of the Greeks, right? Their gods were their gods were immortal, but they weren't eternal. They had no special relationship to realness, and they could, like, they had tremendous power to engage. They were the gods are children, basically.
What do you mean by
Greek
realness there?
Which in for the Greeks or me? Which?
Well, you use the word. If there's a difference, I'd like both.
So I'll work backwards. For the Greeks, the gods have no special access to realness because they are just as contingent as everything else, and they don't represent or connect to the deeper principles that make things to be. And the way this is shown in mythologically is we have generations of gods. Even this generation of gods will pass away, so they're not plugged into the principle of generation itself. Something like that. That's the proposal. For me, it's the same thing. If it's not putting you into a reciprocal opening with the inexhaustibleness of reality, I'm hesitating to call it eternity. I'm willing to say it's a flow state, but I don't think it's eternity. And what I was pointing to in Dante is he's got that connection to time, but it's also like this. Let's see what I'm trying to, because I can't articulate it, but it's this, right? There's a sense of the inexhaustible, and that although this is specific like to a context, what he's talking about, it will transpose to many other contexts readily and powerfully, and that's for me the hallmark of something being eternal,
Right.
and real.
Right. Right.
Can I try something? Because we have a different
right.
set of language. I want to see if this image works. So I've got Mathieu Pageau's symbolic symbol on. So what I would say is that the real is where heaven and earth meet. Does that map to what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying is going on in Dante. That's exactly what's going. In fact, that's the point of the comedy, right? Is how Dante's quest is, how do heaven and earth meet? But you can't give a simple answer to that, because we have to get rid of all of our projective hopes, which are many of our sins, for how we think heaven and earth are supposed to meet. I mean, isn't that the theme, or at least one theme in the comedy? Exactly.
So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to argue that the flow state of a child and the flow state of a video gamer are not the same in this case, because the flow state of the child is where heaven and earth meets, precisely because the flow state of the child is perfectly connected to the developmental context of where they are. So a child who is beginning to learn how to stand is in imminent relationship with the pattern of human standing and is moving actually towards that pattern until that pattern has actually been embodied.
I disagree, because that child, if the world was filled with only 2-year-olds, it would be a disaster. This is one of Jordan Peterson's favorite line. You are looking at the dynamical system of the child and the adult who is structuring the environment around them to make sure that that's occurring. It's not in the child experience without all of the prosthetic aid of the adult.
Well, that's fine, because from the point of view of eternity, there is no local. and there is no separate. And so, yes, the child is also intrinsically and fluidly not separate from the larger context, and so therefore more present to eternity.
No, what I'm saying is the dynamical system of the parent and the child is actually what you're talking about. And that entity is the one that may be touching eternity.
No, what I'm saying is it's even broader than that. So it's the full continuity, meaning it's actual wholeness, not even a subset of the parts of wholeness in relationship, but the fully integrated wholeness without, in the principle here is the principle of continuity. So the child is in relationship with the adult, also probably in relationship with the grandparent who influenced the adult subtly, and relationship with the ice cream cone that's currently coursing through their veins in a way that is the key thing, that was without separateness. That's the argument.
Then I think I agree with you, but then that's nothing specific to childhood.
Well, this was, I think, separates a child from an adult as an adult exits that world. And this is maybe the self-reflectivity problem, right? And begins to actually not live in immediacy with wholeness, but rather separates from wholeness. I mean, I do this all the time. This is the opposite of the flow state in some sense. It's when you actually abstract the reality you're in.
But again, to come back, because the adult can do that, the adult can actually make sure that there's going to be bridgings beyond the current context, which gives the child the access to the continuity you're talking about. If the adult was not capable of abstracting, the adult would be just as much as completely in this situation as the child, and then we'd lose what we were talking about there. See, this is the thing I want to resist. God has no abstract ideas, but that doesn't mean he stops being God, right? This is the tremendous tension that I'm trying to understand in Spinoza. It's the complete interpenetration. And Chris wants to talk, so I don't think you and I are disagreeing, Jordan.
Chris is renowned for his desire to jabber.
You were going to say something a few minutes ago, Chris.
You were. I saw it in your face.
I forgot it. But I was thinking of the famous line from the gospel, right? To turn and how's it go? Only those who become as children can enter the kingdom of heaven, or you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven unless you become as a child. And I'm wondering what to make of that in light of this conversation.
Yes, but
it's what almost got me thrown out of the conference is when I suggested getting baptized twice. Because you've got both.
When did that happen? I don't remember that happening. When did you do that?
It was at a dinner in the evening with cigars and bourbon and a mix of a variety of different Christian traditions. And the only thing they could agree on is that was absolutely unacceptable.
To be baptized twice.
Yeah, you could either baptized at infancy in the Catholic or an Orthodox sense, or you could be baptized as an adult in the Protestant sense. But getting baptized twice is a guarantee getting thrown off the boat for everybody.
What was your thinking behind wanting that or finding that to be desirable?
Well, what I noticed is that both arguments make sense. They're both real. They're both true. There is something about the argument for infant baptism that is real and true and necessary. And there's something about the baptism of belief that is real and true and necessary. And so the Catholics solve this problem by giving them different names.
Confirmation.
Right. Yeah. They're like, hey, we have this other thing that we're not going to call baptism because we've got a creed that says you can only have one baptism.
Yeah.
But that those sacramental moments are definitely real and necessary. And what I notice about them is that they connect very deep with the conversation we're having. There's something about the faith of the child that is in the kingdom intrinsically and perfectly. And there's something about the actual conscious belief of the adult that is necessary and you cannot do without. And there's something about the relationship between the two is actually that those in harmony are a proper relationship with eternity.
Yeah, the notion in Zen is beginner's mind, which is supposed to be the interpenetration of the adult's capacity for reflection, but constantly oriented towards the child's ability to start from afresh. And
to listen to the subtleties of the whole that are present, but get cleaved out by the adult's need to actually impose paradigm on life.
Sure. But I'm trying to do isothenia here. I think there are advantages to being a child and there are significant disadvantages, and same for an adult. I think the adult's ability to reflect and move between, for me, this is relevance realization. You want cross-cultural transfer and you want context sensitivity. The child has context sensitivity, very poor at transfer. Try to get children to transfer. It's very hard. Get them to go to bed. Very hard, right? They don't transfer well. Adults lose the ability to become very sensitive to a particular context. And so I guess I'm trying to say, for me, eternity would be when those are in the best stereoscopic integration. That's what I'm trying to argue for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's what I just said also, in terms of baptism being both.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard you say. Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I think what you said, John, about it's actually, if you consider the relation, the development of the child with the parents in that relation, right? Something you can, and I think that's actually what I was describing. It was that it was this kind of relation we had with, or have with, Teague often, which is something about his spontaneity, is just unconscious, undiscerning, right? Awareness, and that he just exists at all, that like communicates something that's hard to explain to us, that then actually has us respond, right, to him, I'm sure, in ways that we wouldn't otherwise, right? And that there's that relational arc where I think maybe somewhere in there's like eternity or something. I'm not sure.
Well, it's similar like when, like, this has now become a trope on YouTube, where the person listening to Yesterday by the Beatles for the first time. Why is that? Why are those things taking off? Well, we love it when we share with a friend, you've never seen blah, and we watch it with them because the freshness of their eyes is absolutely beautiful for us. But it doesn't undermine the accrued appreciation we have. And we get that wonderful aesthetic moment where we both have, I've seen this and I've thought about it, but you have your fresh eye, and you're holding the two together. And that's just such an amazing aesthetic, because you're getting the person's fresh eyes, but you're also you're enjoying that, but you're also reflecting back from them, your deeper appreciation upon reflection. Like, those are wonderful aesthetic moments. I just find them, Chris and I have those moments frequently. He'll say, "Oh, blah blah blah," and he'll share something with me, and then I'll Better Call Saul. You wanted me to watch Better Call Saul, and
Totally.
I watched Better Call Saul, and then we were talking about it, and you were like, and then I was coming as I was having fresh eyes and insights. You were getting it, but you could foresee where the show went, and so my insights were also reverberating with your foresight, and and we were sharing that, and that was a powerful moment.
Mhm.
That's closer to me than just the fresh eyes.
Mhm.
Did that
Mm.
did that
Mm. Yeah. There's something there. And I'm not even sure what it is yet.
Well, the aesthetic moment, though. You get what I'm talking about, right? That's landing for you,
course.
right? Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
of
yeah.
course. Of course,
Yeah.
of course. No, I'm like, it's the phenomenological. It's like
Yeah.
the taste of that experience is very special, but you're right. There's a dialectic at work somewhere there, which is that you somehow need to live multiply within the experience.
Yeah.
You would say that you need to capture it multi-aspectually by
Yes.
living it both from the place of knowledge and learned perspective and the place of novelty. And there's something about that stereoscopy. So that's all. I get all that, but there's something else.
Try this.
There's
Try
something
this.
else, and I don't know.
I've got like this seed.
Okay.
So I'll do two. So this one over here is like, let's think about time differently. And let's think about time almost in the way that time and space collapse. So when you are introduced to an experience, let's just use, is it Never Call Saul? Is that what it's called?
Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul. Chris has a presence, a moment a quality of his being, of his self, that has that experience entangled relationally. And when you begin to entangle yourself with that relationally, yourselves are becoming entangled relationally in that. So I'm actually exploding the spatiotemporal index
Yep.
of time and actually saying that we're talking about reality, and reality is woven out of these threads. And so what's happening is you're literally moving events that superficially are occurring at different points in time, and you're merging them into a new dimensionality of experience.
Excellent.
So then the one over here is one of the most potent versions of that is grief, which we've talked about.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, when I'm in a moment of grief and you're in a moment of grief, we both can have an experience that somehow that's the same place. And a place is a way of describing it.
Yep.
That transcends the particularities of time, although not losing them entirely. It nonetheless changes them quite distinctly.
And we mix the two together when we have this phrase. Dan Sheppy and I we're reading through God is Red, an Indian view, and he's an Indian, so that's not a pejorative way of talking, blah, 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 blah. A Native American, indigenous. And he said it's an Indian view of religion, and he tries to argue for the centrality in the Indian world. I'm using his language, by the way. I'm not trying to be offensive, right? The way place takes priority over time. But you have this interesting notion of taking place, which has a temporal aspect to it, which sounds to me very much like what you're putting your finger on. And so it's not like there's no time, but it's that time is in service of taking place, which is what is that landing for you?
It's definitely harmonizing. There's something really nice about that. It's filling the space. Like we're actually aesthetically crafting the space for the conversation we're trying to have as an example of the thing about which we're speaking.
Yeah, we're exemplifying the very thing we're trying to put our finger on. But I liked your idea of, you get the diachronic dialogue and then you get a synchronic taking place that's happening because of that. Yes, that explicated, I think, one dimension that was implicit in what I was trying to put my finger on. Yes, that landed for me when you did that.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
It sounds in some sense like time ultimately being subordinate to the moment, and a certain temporal recurrence giving itself to a continual arrival of the same.
Yeah.
Right. So, the thing that was so enjoyable for me about you watching and experiencing this story that I thought was so ingenious and really hallowed as a morality tale.
Yeah.
Is that what would arrive is ultimately of the same moment as what arrived when it arrived on me. And yet there's something about the time elapsed since it arrived to me and the immediacy of the way that it arrives to you that speaks something of the constancy of its ongoing arrival.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's the polarity between those that they're sort of held. Yeah. Very much.
And so we can together, more than we can on our own, we can coordinate ourselves when we share an experience and yet also when we hold something in common, yet we also hold it independently. And we can coordinate our appreciation of it. We get both senses simultaneously, right? We get a longitudinal horizon line that unfolds an understanding of something between points A and B, and yet we also get the sense of its constant, never ceasing emergence into awareness.
And I think that's the driving eros in the Platonic circumambulation. The circumambulation is trying to do exactly that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just it's funny enough, I just got I know John and I, our mutual friend, Daniel How do you say his last name? Zeruba.
Daniel Zeruba.
Yeah. He sent me.
I need you to put just before I forget. I need you to put me back in contact with Daniel. By the way, at some point.
He's been working on this for over a year with a friend of his of translating Ivo Di Gennaro's Italian work. He's he's a Scot, he's a philosopher in Italy. His work on like a 70-page thing he wrote on skole, right? And the notion of skole, right? And it's all about getting into what actually was skole for the Greeks, right? How did they think it? And there's
we should let people know
yeah.
that, we're talking about leisure and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but what does that properly mean? Yeah.
It's like, it's really like not captured well in the notion of, in our modern notion of leisure, right? Or
I know, I'm just saying that's the standard translation. Yeah. Go ahead.
or it's also idleness is another way of looking at it.
Which is also very problematic for
problematic.
Protestant ears.
Yeah. It kind of the sense that I get, right? The sense I
Not
get,
working.
yeah, totally. And so, of course, like, I think it was Aristotle said that, you can only do philosophy in and through leisure, and, theoria can only take place in and through skole, right?
Yeah.
And so this is this very deep notion. And in my sense was of just, and I don't know if I totally understand all of it, but like my sense is, so leisure is somehow connected to this, this notion of holding. And so when he's talking about, like, when Aristotle's talking about leisure, when, Plato's mentioning leisure, right? There's this sense of like, it actually has to do with a relation to time, right? And this is those kind of the sense that I get. It's this relationship to time, right? Where the way we hold time in turn holds us. And this was what De Janeiro is like emphasizes in this, which time reveals being's sense of sufficiency, right? Like, I thought that was really interesting. Like you're held in this sense of the sufficiency of being, like the given meaningfulness of the abiding sense of it, right?
But I think we're circling back now, but in the circumambulation, I think this is what Hahn is trying to get at with lingering.
Yeah.
Because I think in lingering, you have the ability to do what Chris was talking about. You have the ability to hold through time the way time is coming in service, right? To the moment. Because lingering has a moment, right? It has a wholeness to it, but nevertheless, it's like, if a person lingers well, it's like getting Chris's foresight and John's insight together in the same moment, because you're lingering and you can sort of remember how you first came in, your fresh eyes, but now you've learned, but you're lingering. Like I noticed that when we were with the bishop in the churches, and the way he lingers in the church, and the way, like, he's trying to tie the first moment you go into the church to the later moment in which he's disclosing something, but he's trying to tie that back, and he keeps doing this with his constant thing about the earthiness of it, the earthiness, and he's trying to get that sort of holding it together, and he lingers really well, which even sounds bad in English. But yeah, is that going towards anything for you, Guy?
Oh,
Because that's what I'm thinking of when.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's this non-objectifying presence. It's this it's this it's like almost if transaction had an opposite, it's more than just the opposite, but it's this seeing something actually kind of in a sense of the I, like I thou, I think probably gets at that.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. The sense where you approach the flower and linger with the flower, right? And in some sense, it can start to address you when you're not relating to the flower as like the thing that's my wife is going to like if I pick it, right? It's more like it can speak to you. And
what you're supposed to do is stop and smell the flowers.
Yeah.
The scent of time, the earthiness that the bishop talked about, right? This all comes back in some sense to the scent.
Yeah.
And if you think about the way that scent memory works, the way that it transports us, well, embedding us even more in the moment while also recurring us from
yeah.
past and projecting us forward. There's a way in which it sensationally collapses time into the moment.
Have you ever had that when you like I remember like I'll go somewhere and somebody will burn a candle and I'll go, I'm in church.
Oh yeah,
Right.
of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
All the time, all the time.
Taste works that way too. Think of Proust and eating the Madeleine, right? And he's suddenly Proustian memory. He's yeah.
The
When you
physicality.
smell a cologne or a perfume of somebody
Oh
you or someone you've loved, it's like, right? It's powerful, powerful stuff.
And the person's almost there like a ghost again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just remember the smell is the scent that, or the sense that is precisely about confirmation. It requires the actual molecule to be in direct physical
conforming.
contact.
Yeah.
In
That's right.
complex confirmation,
Yeah.
more subtle.
Contact. There's a contact.
And it's
So the image.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go, keep going.
I was just said the image that actually, weirdly enough, this is the conversation my wife and I were having, Vanessa and I were having right before I sat down for this, which I said, the weather right now is sublime. And I mean that in the precise term. I mean, it's transformational to go outside. The leaves are just beginning to let you know that they're ready for fall. It's almost electric. And so I said, we got to go for a walk. So we go for a walk. And as you guys maybe, you all know that we have now a 4-month-old. So we're on the other side of not having a lot of leisure.
Yeah.
And as we were walking, we were noticing, almost remembering of this quality of time and this quality of being in the world. And she was reflecting on how much she yearned for that. And and of course, being a husband, I immediately took that as a mandate to figure out how to get her that whenever she wanted it.
Yes. That is the correct response.
And so what came to me was this other experience I had where once upon a time I was sitting in the water on a surfboard. It was a big day, very big day, bigger than I was comfortable with. And I was having to work with effort to get into the waves, and a certain level of effort even to ride the waves. And also, by the way, failing more than I usually would because of that. And I just happened to be looking down the lineup, which was a better position in the peak. And there was a guy there who I watched him, and he paddled into the wave with a single paddle. And he just, and I was like, okay, what is he? And I watched him, he paddled in the wave with a single paddle. And then he paddled into, and by the way, I'm paddling into the wave with like 15 hard paddles. Like I am really struggling to get to match the speed and everything else. He paddles into the next wave with 0 paddles. He literally just is so perfectly attuned to the opening of possibility that is afforded by the context that he's able to actually, and so that's leisure. He was able to be in the place where the movement of reality was inviting him into a possibility, and he was positioned to be able to receive that invitation with not no effort, but sublime effort, right? Everything was actually just there. And then, of course, as he rode by, he literally was able, we're on this big wave, he would ride by, he was perfectly aware of the fact that I was watching him. He just made eye contact and he let me know, yes, this is the thing to which you are striving. and there's, I mean, it was perfect. It was like the moment, like basically we were both at the same moment in that spot in time. And the space-time collapsed. And I was just there, and I could almost feel the experience he was having, if that makes any sense. And then off he was.
Did you ever read Momo? It's by the same author as The Never-Ending Story, and in it there's this character. It's a tortoise, and this tortoise is faster than anybody else, not because it moves faster, but it's like the Taoist tale about the cook who never has to change his blade because he can sense the space between the joints. And Momo, the tortoise can find, like, sees all the openings, all the affordances are super salient, and he or she, I can't remember, and always gets there ahead of everybody. 'Cause everybody else, no matter what they try to do, they're bumping into things, they get redirected, and the tortoise just goes. And of course, it's playing with the tortoise versus the hare in an ingenious way. And that's what I was thinking about when you were saying that. The tortoise moves at its leisure. We used to talk about people moving at their leisure as a way of trying to convey that they didn't have to rush. They showed up like Gandalf says to to Frodo, a wizard shows up precisely when he should, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's almost like I'm just getting this sense. I'm thinking about just what we're talking a lot about is like the salience landscape, right? And what becomes most salient to us just and speaks to us naturally and how we respond to that. It's like, it's almost like,
Yeah, but we're
yeah, tell me more.
well, yeah, but there's an inversion here. There's like we're no, I mean, it's like the difference between Western and Asian art, where we put the subject in the center, right? And then and so our salience landscape is um, centering on objectives,
Yeah.
where in Asian art, the space, the openings are put in the center of the picture, and the people and the stuff are around the margins. Because being able to find the affordance of the opening is the center of the aesthetic. And so I'm hearing it more like that
Yeah.
people have a salience landscape attuned to, like as Jordan was saying, that opening between the waves, the opening that affords access,
Yeah.
as you were saying, to the deeper sense of being, rather than our normal salience landscaping, which thwarts us from lingering and moving at our leisure.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
Is that
yeah, and I was just gonna say it's like it's what we're talking about is like more than the opposite of bullshit, right? Like it's like it's the total reversal of that, where what's most salient is that which is most real, right?
yeah, most opening you to what to the disclosure of the depths of being. Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah. That to me, and I'm not claiming that I foresaw this, so I'm not saying that, but that to me is like that's what I wanted to be saying when I was trying to say about you're in time, but you're looking like into eternity, like Dante's doing in the comedy. I'm not saying I saw that back there, but now I can go back, haha, kind of exemplifying what we're talking about, and recover it and say, oh, that's what I was groping towards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're lingering, right? Because we're lingering.
And
We're
it's
lingering with,
and circumambulating.
yeah,
Yeah.
It makes sense of the potency of memory reconsolidation
yeah,
as a, you know, the idea that memory reconsolidation, I know Greg talks a lot about this, but this has been one of the more significant, let's say, theoretical claims made of the effects of psychotherapy in general, that it's maybe its greatest gift is the gift of reincorporating memory
Yeah.
and giving it a renaissance of meaning. And what happens when there's something about the specific memory that can get its own renaissance, but what's really getting a renaissance is your understanding of time, the way it relates to who and what you are, the way that relates to your sense of possibility, the way that relates to your sense of reality. All of these things are simultaneously affected when a memory changes its aspect, changes color, like the leaves in the fall that Jordan's beginning to notice, and falls in a way you could never have expected.
yeah. Yeah, memory reconsolidation as the fulcrum of transformation. Yeah, yeah. But then something comes to mind there because we're now realizing from psychedelic research there's another fulcrum. So altered states of consciousness, let's say prototypical ones in psychedelics, are not good or bad. Demonizing them was wrong and romanticizing them was wrong because what they represent are states that are now called states of epistemic vulnerability. And yes, Guy, I think of you every time I hear that phrase, vulnerability. I do. I think of you. And thank you for that. But what the point they're making is we seem to what's going on in this state, what might be their evolutionary function. The brain triggers these states when we need to do a lot of learning very fast. When we have to move, when we have to evolve our evolvability, not just evolve a particular thing. And so what that means, of course, is if that glums on to something horrible, people rabbit hole. But if it's appropriately set, people can grow. And I'm wondering, So here we have two fulcrums for significant transformation. Chris is right. Totally. The research bears it out. Memory reconsolidation, but also from the therapeutic context, epistemic vulnerability in sort of mystical states. And then we have Plato's anamnesis, which is the two together. Plato's anamnesis is the two together. You're feeling like you're remembering, but you also feel like you're evolving, like you're going through that moment. And again, we've had many people in, like, when they encounter dialectic into Dialogos and they encounter the virtue or even the process of the logos, they have said things to like us, like, I've always been looking for this, although I didn't realize it, kind of thing. And that has both of those, to my mind, the phenomenology. It's got the memory reconsolidation, because they're going back and they're reinterpreting, they're reconsolidating their memory totally, but they're also in a state of epistemic vulnerability. They're now willing to learn a lot across a lot of domains. And I'm wondering if, because Plato, sorry, I'm getting excited about, but Plato links the phenomenology of anamnesis often to the experience of eternity.
Yeah.
Because that's his evidence of us being in connection to the forms. Am I making any sense?
Yeah.
Or is this just...
All right. I'm
Yeah.
going to throw a dimension in. I think it's relevant. I've been thinking a lot for the past year about the inevitable reconciliation of the church. And the
Now that's a t-shirt line. I got to put that one out.
Wait. In what? Sorry, Jack. In what sense?
the Catholics and the Orthodox will make up. And
Okay,
then the
that's what you meant.
Protestants will fold
I
up.
thought that's
what
what
I
you
mean.
meant, but I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. Okay,
I'm
the
very
inevitable reconciliation. All right.
The inevitable, yes. And the way that it has been coming up for me a lot for the past month and a half is anamnesis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the, Christ, remember me.
Yes.
Anamnesis. And so.
Yeah. And sati means remind in that anamnesis way too. Mindfulness from the Buddha. Yes.
There's also something I keep thinking about. I just had a conversation with Desmond.
William Desmond.
Yeah, specifically
you
on.
Promised, you promised to connect me to him.
I did. I think I did.
How?
I emailed both of you. I'll do it again.
You gotta,
do it again.
You got to take
Do it
guy
again.
out of the spam folder.
Again. He's right. He's
John
great.
doesn't take his-
He's awesome, right? But like I wanted to have a conversation specifically on the sense of default nihilism, or he would say atheism, right? And
Yeah.
one of the things that it really kind of hit me when he said it, right, was, part of his, I don't think I can give full justice to it, but part of his account on, basically what he's saying is the current reconfigured ethos that we live in is in such a way that, like, if you just raise a child and don't do anything, they'll be basically a nihilistic materialist or something like that, right? You just kind of like, and there's something about our culture that doesn't catch any of that. And he says, and what's interesting is he says, like, the difficulty is because we don't, nothing here points us back to reminding us of the enabling and power, like the enabling powers, right? So you would say the Canatus Ascendi, or not? No, that's the other one.
No, the Passio Ascendi, the essential passivity, right?
Yeah. And I'm just getting this sense of, like, just this sense of remembrance. When I think remembrance, in some way I'm looking at it, remembering it, but there's this thing behind me that I remember. It's like, it's all, because part of that thing is, it's already been the case the whole time, and I had not seen it. And you're kind of remembering, and you reconfigure your whole past based on this insight of remembering it. And there's something
you do that a lot. You do that a lot, guy. Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, you do that a lot, guy. You do that a lot. Like that moment you just did. Like, and I sorry, this is I am praising it. I'm praising that about you. You frequently do that. you frequently go into anamnesis phenomenologically when we're in discussion or doing something. You do that thing you just did there where you say, yes, I'm remember, but there was that was there that it was affording me to do the remembering in the first place.
Yeah.
Yes? You do that a lot, which is good, by the way.
And it's as if it's
Okay,
already
so-
there, and you already belong to it. It's not even like you're outside of it and like I joined and now I belong. It's like you find yourself belonging to it, right?
Right. But it's also, and here's Thomas Cheetham, it's also the angel out in front of you. It's not just behind you, affording you, it's in front of you, calling you.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
totally.
Well, it's kind of what's meant by you brought up the author of the never-ending story. That's kind of the never-ending story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the point, right?
Yeah.
It's never-ending in the eternal sense that I think we mean, that you mean, not in the
Everlastingness. Yeah. Yeah.
not in the everlastingness of time, but in the transcendence of the comprehensiveness of the narrative itself and the beholder thereof. It's in that sense that it's never ending.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
constantly growing out of itself and into a greater understanding of itself and into a greater being of itself by its own understanding. And that's why it's never ending. And that's like that moment of in the never ending story of like that revelation. I mean, as like, I don't know, as sort of innocent and maybe dated as it is now, there's something about that. I remember seeing that film and going like, oh my God, there's something so profound about that moment where you realize you zoom out and you're realizing you suddenly get this sort of God's eye of perspective that isn't remotely God's eye of perspective, but that is a kind of a taste, a sample, the briefest glint of a God's eye of perspective by which the story is known. And only by that transcendence is it never ending, as opposed to being everlasting.
And that's the thing I'm on about, that it's godlike. It's godlike and it's abstractive, but it's not abstract. Do you know what I'm trying to get at?
Right.
You're not fleeting into conceptual thought. You are lifting out. You are lifting out, but you're not separating. I had that weird watching the otherwise unremarkable movie Troy so it was designed to have us look at Brad Pitt's muscles from various angles. Poor Bana is trying to maintain a movie throughout. But at the end, and it's Sean Bean, which is a great voice for over, he's doing this, and then he says, the story, and then what he does is he suddenly brings the audience, like in the Never-Ending Story, right? When the reader is brought in, and then we are brought in, right? He breaks the fourth wall, and you realize, oh, right, we're telling the story again of Hector. And I had that moment. That was the only moment that was really sort of exciting for me in the ending of it, of that movie. It's like, right. This story is no longer on screen. It's in me. And you had that sense of the God's eye that's abstracted but not abstract. I remember that. That was like a visceral moment when that happened. And for me, it's too bad because it cast the rest of the movie in a bad light for me. But that I came away sort of liking having gone to the movie because of that moment where it was like, oh right, there's a timelessness about, like, there's timing going on, like there's a timing element, like getting the timing right, the attunement, but there's a timelessness too. Yeah. That's it, right? That's what you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those are the moments, right? Those are the moments. I was talking to who's the guy at the conference that constantly obsesses about the Book of Job? What was his name? Was it Jess or Jeff?
Yeah,
Jess. Right. And sorry, and he does it to good effect, by the way. It's not useless thrashing. But we were talking about this, and I offered to him Job versus the volcano, the moonrise, as what the Book of Job is actually doing, which is stop thinking, abandon the just world hypothesis, because it's just going to cause you post-traumatic stress disorder. But look, look at these moments, right? And this is what happens at the end of Job when he just shows them all the amazing things and goes, look. And it's the same thing with the moonrise. Thank you for my life. There's no justification. There's no theodicy. There's no, and here's why everything is evil. It's just like, but look, and you get that moment and it makes it worth living in the face of all of this other horrible, horrible stuff. That to me, there's something life-saving about that. There's something really, really life-saving about that.
Yeah.
Hmm. Isn't it interesting how a single moment of that quality reconciles a whole life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Stoics talked about that. They talk about if you could have one moment as a sage, all of your life is redeemed, no matter what else happens.
Which is why, it means that the eventfulness of your life is not its purpose.
That was a beautiful Chris. That was just a beautiful Chris moment there. That was, oh, wow. Say that again. That is scintillating. Say that again. Just say it again.
The eventfulness of your life is not its purpose.
Wow, Chris.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to savor that. Please go on, but that was just.
I feel like that'd be a what's the guy's name who does the he takes clips and then puts them against music. Music he writes. Oh, what's your guy?
Oh, Akira the Dawn.
Akira the Dawn. That was a very Akira the Dawn clip.
Yeah, that's right.
No, so Chris, I just want to make sure I'm really getting what you're saying is, so the eventfulness of your life is not its purpose, right? I'm imagining when I think of eventfulness, I think of the unfolding circumstances of my life and the things I'm dealing with, right? And I think what you're saying is like, yeah, what are you saying about that? Like when I see it, when I get that it's that, all that isn't the purpose of my life or the why of my life.
I'm seeing King Conan slouching on his throne. An eventful life.
Right.
Yeah. And so these moments like teach us how to see. Like I just think bringing all those together is like having me see, right, again and again, that I pay attention to some of the, right, most unimportant stuff that seems so important, right? And that there's something about the moments, kind of the timeless moments that we're talking about, right? That reminds me like, oh,
nice.
like you remember, oh, it's not about like how much money you make or whatever, whatever it is that I'm obsessing on, right? It's something else. It's this.
So I don't know if you noticed, but well, I think this was off camera, but Guy had made the proposition that we might want to do a current events show. And we were talking about how does that even work?
That went over well.
I think we just did it. I don't know if you noticed, but if you go back to the very beginning and the pre-beginning, I think we've unfolded it exactly as was preordained.
Yeah.
The eventfulness of life is not its purpose. Whatever is happening to you right now is really, if it's distracting you from the thing, then it's a distraction. If it's pointing you to the thing, then that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So what should we be doing? What could we be doing to have, because we can't manufacture them, given everything we've been saying about this. There are moments of resonance which require uncontrollability, right? But what can we do to afford more life-giving anamnesis for people so they can realize the purpose of their life is not the eventfulness?
Just
One of the things
leads into this, something that just keeps like there's a kind of question I have that's been lingering is, it seems almost by definition, right? I think by definition that what we're pointing to here is rare. There's a rareness, like wanted.
Maybe for us,
Yeah.
maybe for us, it's rare. I
Yeah.
think I've come to, I mean, I always took it seriously propositionally, but that's all it could be for me. But given some of the things I've seen and some of what I've encountered in other people, and I got a sense of what it might be for somebody to be on a trajectory towards theosis, where it goes from being the glimpse after glimpse to being an ongoing orientation and awareness.
Yeah.
Um, I think, and Jordan said this earlier, I think the saints and the sages aren't, I mean, they might be rare people, but I don't think these are rare moments for them. I think they have found how to dwell, not live,
Yeah.
but dwell in anamnesis
Yeah.
in a profound way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and Kierkegaard seems to be trying to get that too. The contemporaneity,
Yeah.
being contemporaneous, he seems to be like, and the teleological suspension of the ethical, which seems the most eventful. There seems to be people that have it more. Well, I'm pretty confident in this. They have it more continuously than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that in some sense, the sum total of all spiritual practices is the answer to the question you asked.
So I'm wondering, it's like there's
That's what they've all been pointing towards.
there's
Yeah.
there's like a horizontal rareness, which means like, yeah, this does not happen often through time, right? But I'm wondering if I don't know if that's the right word, rare, but I'm wondering if there's like a vertical like rareness that seems essential to this. Like, so I would just imagine like the saints, I don't know, maybe they have it every
Well,
5.
the word Spinoza uses, and if we have to hear the original etymology, is excellent, right? It excels beyond,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean it can't be on. I think Spinoza lived a life of blessedness, where blessedness is exactly what we're talking about. The intellectual love of God, I think, is what we've been talking about here. That life-giving anamnesis, because he's the one who keeps inspiring me with God does not have abstract ideas, right? Um, and this is the guy who's maybe the maestro of abstract ideas, and it's like Aquinas at the end saying it's all straw, right? He builds this whole thing up, and like Wittgenstein, he throws the ladder away, right? I One of the great hopes, and I think this, I don't know, but it's at least a reasonable hypothesis why the cloak of melancholy has left me, is I have gone from believing in holiness to hoping for it, in that I have encountered it and I understand that it is real in a deeper way than the way, this table has a certain set of dimensions or something like that. I'm struggling, but that hope, I used to hate hope. And this is another change I used to hate hope, because I found hope, to be fair to me, I found hope at the heart of a lot of irrational, neurotic, self-destructive behavior. People who wouldn't get over somebody because they're hoping that the relationship is going to. We're all aware that there's a noxious, vicious version of hope. Okay, and the Greeks get this, because there's the ambiguity about the hope being left in Pandora's box. Is that because it's the great gift or the worst of all the evils? And Heidegger goes on about that and all that stuff. But now for me, I have a very positive view of hope, because I saw somebody who was on a trajectory. This is the metaphor that I keep coming back to, towards theosis. And they were like a telescope refracting that back for me. And that gives me hope, not that I'll be a saint, but it gives me a hope in it becoming more of an ongoing way of life for me, rather than a belief I'm trying to reinforce with evidence. Do you understand the difference that I'm trying to get to?
Yeah, and in the way that you were talking, in the sense of like flickers.
Yes. But if you flicker things fast enough, you get them moving.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, this is I have been there. I have been there occasionally, enough to know that A, it's there, and B, it's the place to be. I struggle mightily to find a way to be there more fully and more durably and more completely, and I guess that's what the notion of theosis means.
Yes. 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 Yeah. That's where I was asking that question from. I wasn't asking it as just a merely, scientific pedagogical question. I was asking it existentially. How do we live such that that becomes all the adjectives you just gave?
Yeah.
Well,
And this is, oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, I mean, this isn't there's nothing instructional about this, nor is it a very encouraging thought, but I think there's a reason that it often comes canonically in the form of consolation, meaning it comes on the heels of tremendous, tremendous suffering and despair.
Yeah, yeah.
And it comes when someone loses everything, whatever it is that constitutes everything for them in that particular moment.
Totally.
Everything, I mean one thing, but one thing that's become everything. And then when they lose that, and they have nothing and they are nothing, and all of life becomes a revelation of failure, right? A cascade of failure, right? Have you had that moment? I'm sure you've all had it. You look back at your life and you're like, oh, all I've done is just fail. All I've
Yeah.
done is
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
bungle every single thing in my life and made every bad choice I could conceivably make. And whatever it is that I've done with my life cannot possibly be a source of goodness. And if it is, then I'm utterly bankrupt in life and the world, and being itself is utterly bankrupt. And it's, I think, in the weight of that kind of loss, and then the realization that, wait a minute, I'm still here and there's something else still here too. That, I think, is where hope flickers. There's a reason that they analogize it to the candle always in the dark. And then from there, I think, whatever grace it is that we're talking about, I think often, I don't know if it's true that it must only come in the wake of absolute loss. I'm not convinced otherwise.
My current thinking is that it is precise to the degree to which you have grown closer to God that you are available for a more profound fall.
Oh yeah.
And therefore the experience is a continual opening of a horizon for what you're talking about. So as you've in fact cultivated greater holiness, you've actually carved out more possibility that you will be discovering is in fact the thing that has become everything. And that will then fall away and you will be drawn into that, like the tide will sweep you into it, because that actually is the name of the process of theosis, is that movement of growing closer and then actually becoming more capable of having more get swept away.
That's great.
I've been
great.
arguing that, like when I was at the Theosis conference, that Theosis differs from Henosis because Henosis, Theosis is this, like you just did, it's this between Henosis and Kenosis, and that is it's constant, like you just did, and you know, and you get Saint John of the Cross, you get Bernadette Roberts in, you know, The Path to No Self, Eckhart, that even our most sublime experiences of God can be the everything we have to lose in order to go further, which is, and then the line between the Christian Neoplatonist and the Zen Buddhist, to my mind, has completely disappeared. It has been completely erased. And that's not, there's a lot of people talking about that. And Chris, you're right. That's how the Divine Comedy begins. Dante is absolutely
Right road lost.
Yeah, yeah. Right at the very beginning.
Guys,
So-
I've got to go, by the way.
Oh, okay.
But don't,
Yeah.
you can please continue without me. I don't want to terminate with
No.
a very ripe
Oh, that would
conversation.
be
No, that would be unjust. The beautiful is that to which nothing can be added and nothing can be removed. And if you leave, it would no longer be beautiful. So I think we should bring it to an. I just want to say that Desmond talks about this in terms of, he's got a thing, he talks about absolute zero. And Dunn's in his book trying to turn William Desmond into spiritual exercise has done that as a spiritual exercise. And I've been practicing that on a regular basis, which is to try and, as imaginally as you can, put yourself the way Dante is at the beginning of the Divine Comedy. And then, as Chris did, what remains? What remains after everything? Now, of course, you're never going to do it to the same degree as if it was, you know, your life had fallen apart. But it's surprising how powerful that practice can be. It can be a very, very powerful practice.
Like within,
Nice.
you have a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I keep thinking about as we're talking too is this transition that Rilke had in his life, right? Where there's his earlier poetry, right? Which, I mean, it's still, I mean, it's gorgeous. It's like fucking still Rilke, right? But a lot of it's really kind of right and really sentimental, right? And has a lot of his own subjectivity involved in it. And then he goes and he moves in and studies with Rodin, right? And at that same time studied with and spent time with Cezanne, right? And he noticed Rodin had a completely different relationship with his art. He got up at 5 a.m., right? And he worked with models. And he talked about the thing that Rodin was, he was observing something that struck him about reality, right? And he hardly ever talked about himself, right? And the same thing with Cezanne, that there was this intense discipline, right? At looking at what struck them about reality. And it's interesting because then he started to have this kind of transformation about how he saw what he was doing. And he started scheduling times, right, to go write poetry. And so this book, the new poems, if you read them, are these amazing poems where there's no, it's almost like his subjectivity becomes kind of something like the clearing for the moreness of what he was looking at and sitting at, right, could disclose itself as language, right? So it's like there's this sense where you get the sense where what he was trying to do was like rather than just seeing the tree, but actually having the being of the tree, right, disclose itself within the constraints of these poems, right, and speak that. That's one of the things I was just thinking about in terms of what was coming to me is a possible, there's something in there about a possible relationship that we can turn towards this thing that we're talking about.
Thank you, everyone. It was nice to have the band back together. We still make beautiful music together.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Bye, guys. Have a blessed day.
You too.
You too, my friend.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.